They say the worst part isn't the fall itself. The worst part is what comes after you hit the ground hard. You've just gone through what people call ego death. Maybe it arrived through a sudden spiritual awakening. Maybe it cracked you open during a brutal life crisis, a devastating breakup, a psychedelic journey, or years of inner struggle that finally broke through to the surface. Whatever the path, you felt it unmistakably. The old version of you, the identity you'd been clutching so tightly, collapsed. It vanished. For a moment, everything felt peaceful, even liberating. But now you're stuck in a silence that presses in on you. There's no more purpose burning inside, no more drive, no clear self left to fight for. Just a vast empty space where you used to stand. And this is where most people get lost. We imagine enlightenment means glowing forever in cosmic bliss. The truth is messy, more confusing, and it can leave you on the floor of life wondering, why does anything still matter? Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist who completely changed how we understand the human soul, saw this phase more deeply than almost anyone. He called it the death of the persona. The social mask we wear finally falls away, and we see how much of our life has been scripted by fear, cultural conditioning, ego, and the desperate need to be seen and approved of by others. But Jung also believed this collapse is not the end. It's the beginning, the birth of something far more real than the persona ever was. In his view, destruction becomes the fertile soil for transcendent growth. So the real question is, how do you move from this post-ego death void into inspired, meaningful action? How do you rebuild without slipping back into pretending? That's exactly what we're going to explore together in this video. And trust me, this isn't about turning you into a productivity machine. This is much deeper. It's about touching soul-level motivation, the kind that no longer depends on external validation or false identities, but on the truth that lives at your core. Carl Jung left us incredibly powerful clues for this journey. So stay with us until the end, because we're about to completely flip the way you see motivation, meaning, and healing after ego death. We promise, by the time this video is over, you'll have a new framework to move forward, not back to the old you, but toward the essence of who you've always been beneath all the layers. Most people who go through ego death end up in the same place: emptiness. Not clinical depression, not simple apathy, more like nothing lands anymore. The things you used to chase, success, popularity, being somebody, suddenly feel unreal. Goals feel hollow. Affirmations sound fake. Vision boards gather dust in the corner. You're not lacking motivation. You're lacking a self that can be motivated. You've lost the identity that used to give everything direction. Jung taught that at this crossroads we have two paths: retreat back into the old identity, numbing ourselves with anything we can find, or gluing ourselves to shallow goals again. Or we begin the long, sometimes painful process he called individuation. It's the journey of integrating the unconscious, discovering the self with a capital S, the center of the total psyche, and building a life no longer from the ego, but from alignment with the soul. For Jung, individuation is soul alchemy, turning the lead of fear into the gold of wisdom. He once wrote, "There is another inside each of us whom we do not know. He speaks to us in dreams and tells us how differently he sees us from the way we see ourselves." That's the beginning of your new direction, not through force, but through humble, philosophical listening. acknowledging that life is not a battle but a dance between the conscious and the unconscious. Let's be brutally honest. This phase is existentially confusing. You're not lazy. You're undergoing an ontological recalibration, a complete rewiring of the foundations of your being. You've just realized how much of your life was built on survival instincts rather than true soul sovereignty. So if right now nothing feels urgent and the old ambitions no longer light a fire, don't panic. You're not lost. You're in metamorphosis, like a caterpillar dissolving inside the cocoon before it becomes a butterfly. Jung didn't believe the unconscious would abandon you in eternal darkness. He was convinced it keeps sending signals, mysterious symbols, prophetic dreams, divine coincidences, subtle intuitive nudges to guide you into the next chapter. But you have to stay open, like a philosopher waiting for revelation instead of forcing logic. The new self can't be forced. It emerges organically, like dawn after the darkest night of the soul. Before we dive deeper, if you're someone who loves expanding your mind and exploring the hidden layers of existence, make sure to subscribe to Fractal Wisdom so you never miss a single moment of clarity, deep insight, or truth that resonates with the soul. So here you are, in the void, post-ego death, floating in a strange limbo where old-school motivation no longer works and the new kind hasn't fully arrived yet. Honestly, this phase is metaphysically exhausting. You're not doing much, yet you feel drained by the emptiness itself. You crave movement, creation, building something meaningful, but body and mind feel out of sync. Everything slow, heavy, pointless. Here's the philosophical paradox. What if the thing keeping you stuck isn't the emotion itself, but your existential resistance to it? It sounds backwards, but every time you feel tired and then beat yourself up for being tired, you're not resting. You're at war with your own being. Psychic energy gets drained not by the exhaustion, but by the endless inner conflict, the struggle against life's natural flow. Carl Jung understood this dynamic on an archetypal level. He said, "What you resist not only persists, but grows in size." That's not just a nice metaphor. He was talking about the shadow, the dark parts of ourselves we suppress, judge, and ignore. Resisting the shadow splits us in two, creates inner dissonance, and leaks life force like a dammed river ready to burst. But imagine if you stopped fighting. Imagine fully surrendering to the tiredness, embracing it as part of the cosmic cycle. Instead of being ashamed of your lack of motivation, you sit with it, breathe in the same rhythm, and listen to its whisper like a philosopher contemplating the mysteries of existence. Then space opens for transformation. Negative emotions stop being enemies and become teachers, revealing hidden layers. When you allow them to exist without judgment, energy flows freely again, like a river finding its natural course. Let's make it real. You're lying in bed. Nothing feels interesting. The inner critic attacks. You're wasting time. Get up. But instead of drowning in shame, you whisper to yourself, "Right now I feel lazy." That's okay. I'm going to feel it without running away. Your body relaxes, tension melts, thoughts soften. It might not happen instantly, maybe an hour later, maybe minutes, but a spark appears, a gentle curiosity, a light impulse to move, to write a random sentence. That's not forced motivation. That's cosmic momentum, born from alignment. Because on a higher level of consciousness, emotions aren't good or bad. They're primal energy waiting to flow, to be expressed, to complete their cycle. Sadness is the purification of grief. Anger is the guardian of truth protecting your boundaries. Fear is an outdated but well-meaning alarm system trying to keep you safe. Children know this instinctively. When they're sad, they cry hard. When they're angry, they scream. And 5 minutes later, they're playing again as if nothing happened. They haven't been taught to judge their feelings yet. They just feel, until society teaches them to repress, creating the shadow that Jung studied his whole life. And that's where your real power lies, in the shadow. Your wild creativity, primal passion, authentic courage, unshakable realness, all buried under layers of shoulds and shouldn'ts. So when you feel unmotivated, exhausted, moody, uninspired, that's actually good news. That's your fuel. You don't need to fix it. You just need to feel it. And when you do, it transmutes into creative energy. What's even more surprising is how playing with paradox can ignite philosophical creativity. Try this. What if my laziness is my metaphysical muse? Write a poem called Driven by Laziness, or an essay titled The Productive Power of Doing Nothing. What if your sadness is the water that softens stone? What if your fear inspires a story called The Coward Who Became a Hero? Flipping the label creates existential tension that births new meaning, like Hegel's dialectic where thesis and antithesis unite into synthesis. Imagination ignites. You stop running from emotion and start dancing with it in cosmic harmony. This is creativity in its purest form, not the polished Instagram version, but the raw one that pours straight from the soul. Jung would say this is your unconscious coming online, offering symbols, archetypal language, and metaphors to reach what rational thought can't touch. So the next time you feel off, don't fight it. Write, draw, speak from inside it. Let the paradox be the punchline. Your resistance isn't the enemy. It's your untouched artist. And your shadow, it's holding the paintbrush. By now you might have realized something most people never reach. The way forward after ego death isn't about pushing harder. It's about listening deeper, a philosophical stance toward existence. That brings us to one of Jung's most powerful and most misunderstood concepts, the self, with a capital S. Not your job title, not your Instagram bio, not your personality type. The Jungian self is the totality of who you are. It's the cosmic blueprint of your soul, containing both your conscious mind and your shadow, your wounds and your potential. It's not just who you are today. It's who you were always meant to become. The self is the center of the soul's mandala, where all opposites unite in divine wholeness. The self wants to guide you, to evolve and express itself through you. It keeps sending messages, dreams that feel like oracles, strange synchronicities, sudden urges to write or move or call someone. Feelings that make no logical sense, but somehow feel true. But we often miss them because we've been trained to trust only logic, only action, only results. Yet motivation from the self doesn't come from pressure. It comes from resonance, from noticing what feels quietly real, from following gentle pulls instead of harsh demands. And yes, this is incredibly hard, because truly feeling means letting go of control, and letting go of control feels like falling apart. In a world that demands constant functioning, work, business, family, we armor up with logic and routine because we're terrified that if we let go even for a moment, everything we've built will collapse. That's not weakness. That's survival. And it makes perfect sense. But here's the deeper truth. Feeling your sadness, exhaustion, anger, it won't destroy your life. It will anchor you more deeply into it. Because beneath all that tension is the real you waiting to be heard. Make it concrete. After sitting in the void for a long time, allowing yourself to feel without fighting, one afternoon a strange impulse appears. You want to tidy your room, go for a walk, open a blank document, and type a few sentences that don't even make sense yet. You almost dismiss it. That's stupid, what's the point? But it feels light, expansive. That's the self speaking. Follow it. Jung believed this nonlinear, symbolic intelligence is where the gold lives. He called it the transcendent function, the bridge between conscious and unconscious. When you let both voices speak, something new emerges, direction that isn't forced, but revealed, like a platonic epiphany. Of course, it's hard to trust, especially in a culture that treats rest as weakness, intuition as nonsense, and productivity as the ultimate measure of worth. You were raised in that system, so doubt is natural. Fear of being stuck forever is natural. But the soul doesn't operate on deadlines. It operates on alignment. And when you start honoring your energy, listening to deeper pulls, giving space to feel instead of constantly fixing, something shifts. Slowly at first, then all at once. You start moving again, not because you have to, but because it feels meaningful. You start writing, not to be productive, but to express something real. You start connecting, not to perform, but to relate authentically. And that's when the magic begins. Motivation stops being something you chase and becomes something you channel. You become a vessel for the self, for life itself, for the inner artist, inventor, content creator, healer, teacher, builder, whatever has been buried under the rubble of who you thought you had to be. Ask yourself, what has myself been trying to tell me lately? And if you don't know the answer yet, that's perfect. It means you're truly listening. Now you might be wondering, okay, but what do I actually do with all this? Life keeps moving, bills, responsibilities. The world doesn't pause just because you've had a spiritual death and are waking up to your truth. And this is where we close the circle. Against spiritual bypassing, you still have an ego, and that's perfectly okay. Carl Jung never said the ego is the enemy. He said the goal isn't to kill it. The goal is to integrate it, to align it with the self, like a tool serving its master. Your ego is your interface with the world. It makes decisions, sets boundaries, protects you when needed. It only becomes a problem when it pretends to be everything, when it's cut off from the deeper source. So the path isn't choosing between soul and structure. It's letting your structure serve your soul. And that's where motivation takes on a completely new flavor. You no longer move just to achieve. You no longer build out of fear of falling behind. You create because there's something you need to say, something you need to give, something that has been living inside you for a long time, waiting for space. So yes, start small. Let your routines breathe soul. Let your work have rhythm. Let your creativity have cycles. Take care of your body because you love it, not because it's a productivity machine. Give your calendar some breathing room. Let your mornings be gentle if that's what you need. Let your nights be sacred. And when resistance shows up again, because it will, don't fight it. Gently ask, what are you trying to tell me? Because now you know how to hear the answer. You've met the part of you that doesn't need to rush to be worthy. You've begun to understand that sadness, laziness, even fear aren't obstacles. They're messengers. They carry the keys to your next poem, your next idea, your next direction. This is the gift of ego death. It tears down everything false so the truth can finally speak. And when you let that truth shape your actions, when you let your shadow, your silence, your paradoxes color the way you move, the way you show up, the way you serve, you become whole. You stop performing and start expressing. You stop pushing and start aligning. You stop chasing life and start living it fully, wildly, gently, in all its beautiful contradictions. That's not just motivation. That's incarnation. That's the self alive in the world. And if you've made it this far, you're probably already feeling it. That quiet knowing, that subtle shift. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It's not viral. But it's real. And that's more than enough. If this video touched your soul, hit subscribe and join a space for deep thinkers, soul seekers, and people who are tired of pretending. I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment telling me which part hit home the hardest or where you are right now in your own awakening. Your story matters, and you never know whose life it might save.